let's start with the performance, okay? How that evolved and what role your group played, and then how the other groups played into that.
Okay, that sounds fantastic. Basically, it all started about a year ago in May when Jonathan Green, the artistic director for a Sideshow Theater Company, sent me an email. He outlined very briefly his idea to put together a play for 2011 called Heddatron. He basically talked about what it was about, and he mentioned that he wanted help in the design of the robots. He had been looking for people in the Chicago area and had not been successful. He came upon our group using Google, of course. So I told him, yeah, sure, I guess we can help. The thing with our group is that usually when a project like this comes up, the group as Chibots is not the one that participates, but rather it's its members. So, I go to a meeting, I announce the project, I ask to see who is interested in doing this, and then that's up to each individual to decide whether they're interested or whether they can or they can't. So for me, it was very difficult to be able to commit anything to Jonathan at that first email.
Sure.
But I definitely wanted to give him a lot of ideas for what would be necessary in the design of these robots. I consulted with another fellow member. His name is Don Kirst. I don't know if you know him, heard him.
Well, I subscribe to the mail list, and so I see the names pop up. The only one that I've met face-to-face that I recall is Royce, back when he was very active in the organization. And Royce and I actually competed together at Robo Games maybe 3 years ago when he came out.
I see. Okay. Yeah. Well, anyway, I consulted with Don, and between Don and myself, we put together like a very rough draft. Jonathan told me, well, I want the robots to move around. I want them to be remote controlled. I want certain characteristics for each robot, and he based his requirements largely on that same play called Heddatron that was shown in New York in 2006.
Right.
Don and I found a whole bunch of information. The robots had been designed and built by a company I think called Bot Matrix, and they in turn had hired another company. I don't remember their name. I have all this stuff in my notes somewhere.
Okay.
But anyway, they put these robots together. The robots, the way that I saw them, looked simple. They were not complicated machines. But they did comply with the requirements of that theater company, and the play went on, and naturally the robots were the stars of the show.
Sure.
The two creators, two ladies, they toured the country, being invited to different events where they were interviewed about the robots and about the play and what have you not. So based on all that information, Don and I put together this document, and I sent it over to Jonathan, and well, that kind of, opened his eyes, well, we're going to need this, we're going to need that. One of the things we told him, well, these things are not going to be cheap. I mean, if he's thinking of investing $200 per robot, you might as well be dreaming. Don and I estimated more or less $800 to $1,000 per robot.
Right.
And this is the part that was going to be in our field, because basically the robot build team was going to be divided into two. It was the robot design team, which was going to be taking care of all the mechanical and electronical part, which was Chibots, and there was the aesthetic part, the artistic area of the robot, which was going to be designed and built by the Side Theater company.
Okay, so you would do the mechanisms and the control systems, and then the external appearance, like the costumes and things like that, they would take care of. Is that?
That is correct. All the bodies, the aesthetic appeal, everything would be designed and built by them, by the artistic robot team, I guess.
Sure.
So anyway, the two teams got together, and they had a lot to talk about, because both parts had to come together in the right way, like a jigsaw puzzle. So basically, I think we started about in August, because between May and August, it was basically meetings. At first, there weren't that many people interested. First, it was just my wife and I that would attend these meetings with Jonathan. Then Don got involved and Don also participated in the meetings. Then Terry Jackson, another member. And Don and Terry are very senior members because they have a lot of skills that I wish I had. They came to the meetings. And then another new member, his name's Stuart Hedge, he also got interested in, and he started attending the meetings. And one of the things I told Jonathan is, why don't you come to one of our meetings and present your project? One thing that I know is that I can be very enthusiastic about the project, and I can present it to the other members at a meeting, but it's still no substitute when the person who is actually responsible for the project comes in and invites us to do something for him.
Right.
So I think that the impact of him showing up personally would be noticeable. So Jonathan did come to one of our meetings, and that's where Terry and Stuart got interested in the project. So basically, it was more or less 4 or 5 people that were actively in the project. I definitely wanted to participate, but I have to admit that I just didn't have the design skills that these people had. I mean, I see what these people did and said, oh my God. But one thing I'm very good at is documentation. So I said, well, I can write up the user's guide and the technical guide, and they were pretty happy about it. It appears no one in the right mind likes documentation.
Sure.
See, but I do, so I guess I'm not in my right mind. I don't know.
So everybody would contribute what their level of expertise was, and together, all the pieces would fit together to reach a very positive and great result that one individual alone couldn't do as well.
That is correct, definitely. Later on in the project, we got one last member. His name is Eddie Wright. He basically has a small startup store that sells a whole bunch of components for hobby robotics. In fact, it's called Wright Hobbies Robotics. And he was experimenting with the Zigbee module. I don't know if you've heard of that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, okay. So he was experimenting with that, and then he and another fellow, his name is Glenn something, or I can't remember his last name, had recently designed and were commercializing. Sorry about that.
Commercialized. Yeah.
Yes, a new robot controller, a little 3 square inch little board that was using one of the Atmel microprocessors.
Okay.
So they were commercializing that. And it's called a Bot controller.
I'll have to look it up. Yeah. If you could send me the URL later, it'd be great.
Yeah, sure. So he also got interested, and he said, you know what, that these robots can actually communicate wirelessly using the Zigbee module, and we can use the Bot controller as the center microcontroller device. So he got involved, and he was the one that actually designed and built the operator's control panel, which is basically this big giant remote control that sits on someone's lap. And it's a very ingenious device because it actually has 2 joysticks. Only one is used, but you can switch between the left and the right joystick depending on the operator's preference. So that was kind of an interesting detail. And it had a whole bunch of function buttons. It has all these safety features. So the person could just sit down, put this controller on their lap, and control the robot just from a few feet away.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
Yeah, how long is the actual performance? Is it like 2 acts and maybe an hour and a half or something in length altogether?
It's 2 acts, almost 0 time between acts, and the performance lasts about maybe 45 to 60 minutes.
Sure.
It's not long play.
Yeah. But still, it'd be a long time to sit there with the controls, and it's got to be human engineered so that it's comfortable for them to use for that long period of time. I would think. Yeah. So that's great.
Yes, Eddie, Don and Eddie took a lot of time into putting some ergonomics into the design, so that it'll be as comfortable as possible. Like, for instance, one of the things is that they made it supersized. I mean, the footprint of this thing, just imagine it's a little wider than your typical laptop. And the idea of making it that big was that so you could just plop it on your lap, and you could use the control panel as a resting spot for your arms.
Great idea.
hands right there, right on the control panel.
Sure, sure.
And they also had backup power. It uses 4 AA's. At first, it was going to use rechargeable batteries, but the thing is, one thing with the design, and another thing, they just found it more practical. Just forget about the rechargeable battery and just use AA's. And the thing is that one pack basically lasted almost the whole run, I think. And it had 2 packs. The thing is that with that is, if one pack started running out, the control thingy would tell you, based on LEDs, that one pack was running low, and then all the operator had to do was flick a switch, and the second power supply would kick in.
That's great. You can't tell the audience, wait 15 minutes while I run down to the 7-Eleven and buy a new battery pack, right?
That would be correct, yes.
Yeah.
And the thing is that one of the safety features of this thing is that if the robot stops sensing a continuous transmission from the operator's control panel, or as we call it, the OCP, the robot would automatically stop. So obviously you could not have this OCP stop working in the middle of the performance because then that would be a dead robot. And I guess the audiences didn't come to see that.
Sure.
Yeah. So basically the robots were initially finished in January, but the thing is that they kept adding to it, and then the sideshow robot design team, they were also pretty much in a hurry, because in January they still didn't have all the aesthetics of the robot body put in. So basically the robots were, let's just say 95-98% complete by mid-February. That's when they started the dress rehearsals, the pre-production. They have a name for it right now, I can't recall it. But basically they're still rehearsals, but they're open to the public, so you pay something like half price.
Sure.
And if the actor messes up, well, that's your half price, because there's still rehearsals. But it's a full dress rehearsal, and it's a full run. And then finally, the first real production run of the play was on February 26th, I believe.
Okay.
And it ran all the way through April 24th, I believe, or 22nd.
Wow.
It ended. In these days, it's ending. In fact, on Monday, they have to go to the theater and clear everything out. And the poor robots get to go into storage for devices. Sure. So basically, that's the story of the Heddatron robotics project for the Chicago area robotics group.
Well, that's fantastic. It's a great story about the resources of your group and how they can be utilized and how people can come together. You know, it's really interesting for me. I'm sure it'll be interesting for my readers as well. Yeah. I mean, normally you think about robotics clubs or organizations as a bunch of people, oh, well, I built this, and they share a little bit of information. But here they came together to do a project that entertained large groups of people over a long period of time. That's wonderful.
Yes, and the thing is, all the reviews were very favorable, and they totally loved the robots. In fact, the only thing that was more loved than the robots was this little girl. Her name is her character's name is Nugget, and it's like a maybe 10 to 12-year-old girl that's part of the play, and she was very good. She gave the robots a run for their money because everyone just loved her.
Sure.
But second place was the robots. Some people actually went there to see the play more than once just to see more of the robots.
There's an old line by W.C. Fields that talks about something about never wanting to share the stage with a kid or a dog because they'll always steal the scenes.
Yeah, I can imagine that. In fact, I think I've heard of that line somewhere.
Yeah.
It is incredible.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. Would you do something like this again if the opportunity came up?
I'd be sincere, and I think that we would, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. In fact, right now, we're sort of in touch with this outfit in downtown Chicago. It's a startup. It's a group of people that specialize in special effects for film. And there's a chance that we might actually do something with them, but right now everything is sort of up in the air with that.
Sure. Yeah. No, it's a great place for people to get some fulfillment out of their skills and technology, and also to get their name out there. I'm sure a lot of people that participated in this project could add that to their resume, or at least be proud of it with their families and friends.
Yes, Definitely. I think that the one that stands to benefit the most was the person that designed the OCP, Eddie Wright, because he's the only one of us that actually has a business that he can actually use this project as, as promotional material.
Sure, sure, sure. If you could email me, if any of them have like websites or something like that, if you could email me the links, I'll include those in any articles that I post to, give them some link love and some credit. It'd be wonderful.
Sure. And in fact, I am looking for that as we speak. And yes, I can send you all of that stuff.
Great.